So this video has been quite a while in the making. I'll probably have to go through and describe what you're actually seeing first off. So this is the Maiden flights, because there's actually two of them, of the iFlight 7-inch lowride frame that I've already done two build videos of. I will link the two build videos in the description in case you're interested. So this is obviously DVR footage. One of the problems that I realized after I built the quad and took it out for its maiden flight was that there's nowhere to place a GoPro on this quad at the moment. That will be something that I fix. I'm probably just going to print up a mount for it. But in the meantime, it's DVR footage and that's it. So this is the maiden flight, and this is with the Taro 7-inch 3-blade props. I don't actually know the pitch of these props. It wasn't written on the bag and I can't remember when I ordered it, but I think they're 4-inch pitch. And you would have noticed when it first took off, this quad is very floaty. It sort of shot up into the air and then bounced back down again. That was me throttling back because I'd put such a little amount of thrust in to get it off the ground that it kind of freaked me out that it had moved. I caught it before it hit the ground again. So most of this flight is pretty much on quarter to half throttle at the most. So I guess the main reason that I was flying like this, because these two videos are just going to be me doing figure eights around this section and a few other bits in between. So there's no specky flying or anything. But this was basically a shakedown flight. I've never had a 7-inch quad before. I don't know anybody that's had a 7-inch quad, at least not this type. It basically looks like a 5-inch quad with longer arms. It's not a big heavy quad, it's quite light. So I was wondering basically how it would fly. So took it out, did some flights around here, and yeah, as I said, most of this was on quarter to half throttle. That little punch out a minute ago, I think I got that up to 3/4 throttle. And this one again, 3/4 throttle, and I throttled straight back up, and that's when it dropped to the side. And that was basically just testing how much punch I could get out of it, and I was really quite surprised because I didn't go anywhere near full throttle. So apart from making sure the quad worked and figuring out how it flew, the other point of this exercise was to see how long the battery lasted. So this is with my normal 1300 milliamp hour battery, and I normally get on the SCX200 about 2 to 3 minutes. I think I've got my timer set at 2.5 minutes. It's a bit difficult because I use percentage of throttle. It's like 1 minute and 10 seconds percentage, which I think works out to about 2.5 minutes of actual flight. And we're well past 2.5 minutes at this point. I actually bring the quad back down when the battery's at 14 volts. So that's fairly well done battery. You could feel at the end I was having to give it a bit more throttle to keep it up, but not a huge amount. Probably the other thing I need to mention on this is that you'll notice the quad's bouncing around a little bit. This was an incredibly windy day. I had flown the SCX as well, and that was getting buffered around all over the place. This actually handled the wind an awful lot better. So yeah, the camera tilt on this is about 30 degrees. It wasn't a huge amount. Obviously, you can see the props in the image. The one thing that I did notice is the RSSI reading in the top right-hand corner hardly moves. I'm not sure whether that's actually working. It will stay at 98 or 96. I'm not actually sure whether that's a 6 or an 8. I think it's a 6. Stay at 96 almost all the time. I mean, I didn't really take it very far, but you saw it flip a bit down there. I'm not sure if that's actually working or not. I'm going to have to actually test that by taking this quite a lot further out and maybe getting the RSSI reading on the Tyrannus as I'm doing it. Yeah, you saw it move around there. It does move, but I don't know whether it's got any relation at all to the actual RSSI. So I didn't trust it. And because I didn't trust it, I didn't really want to take this quad much further. you can actually go quite a long way in that direction. Well, not that direction, the direction it was originally going. It's all parkland, but the trees get quite a bit thicker, so you kind of either need to know where you're going. So if you just keep going this way, you can see there's trees there. There's plenty of space to fly between the trees, but you're probably better off staying a bit higher. But I didn't want to do that on this because basically I didn't trust this quad yet. So I think I'm bringing it in about now. Yeah, so that was the first flight that I was talking over there. So this probably demonstrates how difficult it actually was to land because the quad was so floaty on these props. And I got, I think that's at 6 and a bit minutes on that battery. So then I changed props. These are some XL7 by 4.5 two-blade props. And there wasn't a huge difference, but there was a bit of difference. So spoiler alert, there was no actual difference in flight time. So these weren't any more efficient than the three-blade props, but what I did find was the quad wasn't quite as floaty. How can I put this? It had a good sink. When you throttled back, it actually behaved like you expected it to behave. This actually felt quite a bit better on these props. It's not saying I'm not going to use the Taros. They were actually quite nice, and you probably could go further with them. But for some reason, these HQs just flew better. Yeah, I'm guessing with only two blades, it didn't provide as much lift. I also noticed that I was throttling up a bit harder on this, but not noticeably much. And it didn't seem to get buffered around as much. I'm guessing it's because there's not as much prop surface area. But yeah. So all in all, this quad actually flew really well. This was completely untuned. It was literally, this is the stock Betaflight tune, and Betaflight's tuned for a 5-inch quad. So for it to fly like this with a 7-inch on motors that I think are over kV, and yeah, this flew really well. They're sort of they're the Cobras. They're sort of the 2204s, although Cobras are basically 2205s, and they're 1900 kV. I think they were 1900 kV. You can see me just getting a bit more confident there and going a bit further. So they're probably a bit high kV and a bit small. So I wouldn't expect them to be able to swing these props particularly well, but they did a great job. And the quad flew really well. So yeah, there's not a huge amount left for me to say. There's still a bit more work left to do on this quad. The plan is not to continue using a 1300 milliamp hour battery. I'm going to be buying a bigger battery. I was talking about an 1800 milliamp, and the guy I was flying with suggested even a 2200 would probably work. I think maybe a 2200 4-cell would be a bit overboard weight-wise. But the extra weight from the extra battery would help the quad. It would help it sit into corners and not feel quite so floaty and light. And hopefully it will give it a bit more runtime. I mean, again, this was 6-something minutes it turns out to be. So yeah, it's really good runtime for the quad. Really happy about that. That's what I was hoping, was to be able to just fly around. On these props, the quad actually felt really agile as well. I mean, there was a decent punch out there. Again, that wasn't full throttle. I never actually took it up to full. But the quad felt quite energetic on these props. I actually felt like I could probably do some flips and rolls, although I wasn't actually willing to try it because I kept reminding myself I don't want to destroy this thing on its second flight. But yeah, all in all, went quite well. Again, the video feed was actually really good. So this is we're standing beneath me there, behind this tree. So when you're seeing the flicks coming out, when the quad is around here, where it's flicking there, the signal's actually trying to go through a tree. And this is only set to 25 milliwatts, so I was getting quite good signal out of this transmitter. I was using the Matec transmitter in the build, and a little AXI antenna, and I quite like those. They give quite a good signal. So I guess the next thing I need to check with that is I need to bump this up to 200 or higher, and see what sort of range I can get. I've been able to go quite a long distance on the 5-inch quads on 200. I can imagine this one with the extra flight time, I'd be able to go quite a long way. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. That's the main reason I wanted this quad, is I just want to cruise around with it. I don't really want to be flips and rolls and fast speeds, although it's quick. There's a couple of times I put the nose down and it goes, which you'd imagine with that much prop space. I mean, I did it there. That's pretty quick. But yeah, it hits the battery a little bit. So yeah, that was the last flight. If you like this video, and this is basically the final video in the series, give it a thumbs up, maybe look at the other videos, and thanks for watching.